Hello there, fifth graders, and welcome to your next math lesson. Please turn in your math notebook to the next available page. And at the top, write the title of today's lesson, which is Fractions and Division. Okay, today we're starting a new chapter, chapter 8, and that chapter is called Fractions and Decimals. This is the first lesson of that chapter, and it's about fractions, what fractions are and how they relate to division. Okay, first of all, a fraction is a number that names equal parts of a whole or parts of a set. For example, 1/3 is a fraction. Now, the top number in a fraction is called the numerator, and it tells the part. The bottom number in a fraction is called the denominator. And it tells the whole. So what the fraction 1/3 means is 1 out of 3. So let's say you had 3 marbles and 2 of them were red and 1 of them was white. That means 1/3 of the marbles are white. 1 out of the 1, 2, 3 marbles is white. That's 1/3 because the top number in a fraction is the numerator. It represents the part that's white, and the denominator doesn't represent the rest. It represents all 3 marbles, the whole amount. Okay, now fractions also relate to division because 1/3 also means 1 divided by 3. We could also show that like this, 1 divided by 3. So the fraction 1/3 means 1 part of a total 3. It also means 1 divided by 3. And you can also show that like this, 1 divided by 3. And notice this makes sense because if you separated 1 into 3 equal parts, you'd get 1/3, 1 out of the 3 parts. Like if there was 1 pizza and 3 people shared that 1 pizza, each person would get 1 of the slices. So that means each person would get 1/3, and that's 1 whole pizza divided into 1, 2, 3 pieces, or 1 divided by 3. So that's why fractions also mean the same thing as division. The numerator is always the dividend, and the denominator is always the divisor. Okay, so let's say there was a situation where there's 3 friends and they each share 2 pizzas. Okay, 3 friends each share 2 pizzas. This means 2 pizzas is being divided by 3 people. 2 whole pizzas are being divided equally among 3 people. That's 2 divided by 3. So how do we show this as a fraction? Well, the dividend is always the numerator, and the divisor is always the denominator. So that means 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. Let's do another example. Let's say there's 2 friends and they're each sharing, 2 friends each share 3 brownies. This time it's reversed. Last time it was 3 friends sharing 2 pizzas. Now it's 2 friends sharing 3 brownies. So this doesn't mean 2 divided by 3. No, because the 2 people aren't being split up and eaten by the brownies. That would be terrible. No, the 3 brownies are being split up and eaten by the people. So it's 3 divided by 2. So we'd write this way, 3 divided by 2. So this could be written as a fraction like this, 3 halves. Now the problem is that's an improper fraction, And the way we make an improper fraction proper is by dividing the denominator into the numerator. You divide this number into this number. Remember, the numerator is always the dividend. The denominator is always the divisor. And notice this just means the same thing as this. 3 divided by 2, 3 divided by 2. So 2 can fit into 3 one time, and 1 times 2 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. Now, when you are dividing, we've already learned to write remainder 1. But the other thing you can do, if you want to show a mixed number, is make whatever the remainder is your numerator, and the divisor is your denominator. And so the answer is 1 1/2. So if there were 2 friends and they each shared 3 brownies, each person would get 1 1/2 of a brownie. And that makes sense. If there's 3 halves, that means here's a half, here's a half, and here's a half. That's what 3, oops, you can't see it. There's 3 halves. 1, 2, 3. 3 halves, and there's 1 half, 2 half, 3 halves. Now, 3 halves, if you take 2 halves, it becomes a whole. So there's 1 whole, and there's 1 half left. That's 1 whole and 1/2. 1 1/2. So 3 divided by 2 is 1 1/2. Let's do another example. Let's say there are 4 families. And they share 5 pies. 4 families share 5 pies. Okay? So think, what's being split up? Are the families being split up, or are the pies being split up? The pies are being split up and fed to the families. So whatever's being split up, that's what is the thing being divided. So it's 5 pies divided by into 4 equal groups for the 4 families. So it's 5 divided by 4. How do we write that as a fraction? Whatever the dividend is, that's the numerator. Whatever the divisor is, that's the denominator. So 5/4. And that's an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So we divide the denominator into the numerator. And that's the same thing we have written here. 5 divided by 4. 5 divided by 4. 4 can fit into 5 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. The remainder for our fraction becomes the numerator, and the divisor becomes our denominator. So now we have 1 1/4. And, I meant to explain it up here with this one. Whenever you have a whole number and a fraction, same thing as we have here, that's called a mixed number. When you have a whole number and a fraction, that's called a mixed number. And it means you have a whole plus a little more that doesn't quite equal a whole. So here we have 1 whole pie plus 1/4 of the pie. And that's what each family gets. Each family gets 1 whole pie and then 1/4 of one of the other pies. Okay, so 5 divided by 4, 5 pies shared by 4 families is 1 1/4. Let's do another example. Actually, before we move on, I want to point something out. Notice that when we have 3 friends sharing 2 pizzas, when the thing being shared is less than the amount of parts that it's broken into, when it's a small number divided by a bigger number, you end up with an answer that's less than 1. 2/3 is less than 1 whole because 3/3 would be 1 whole. So this is less than that. But when you have a smaller number dividing into a bigger number, so if the thing being shared is more than the amount of things sharing it, so there's 3 brownies split between just 2 people, you get an answer that's more than 1 because there's one because each friend gets one whole brownie and half of another brownie. So the answer is 1 1/2. That's more than 1. Mixed numbers are more than 1, but fractional numbers like this are less than 1. And the same thing here, we get an answer that's more than 1 because we're sharing 5 pies among 4 people. So the thing being split up is more than the amount of parts that it's broken into. So you end up with a number that's more than 1. Let's do a few more examples together. Let's say we have 6 bags of soil. Oh, you can't even see it. There we go. 6 bags of soil. And they're used for 5 flower pots. 6 bags of soil are used to fill 5 flower pots. So how much of a bag of soil does each flower pot get? So we're dividing the 6 bags of soil into the 5 flower pots. The flower pots aren't being divided into the bags of soil. The bags of soil are being divided into the flower pots. So the 6 is the number being divided by the 5. Okay, and so whatever the dividend is, that's the numerator. Whatever the divisor is, that's the denominator. So this is 6/5. And again, that's an improper fraction. An improper fraction is when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. And the way we change an improper fraction to a mixed number is by dividing the denominator into the numerator. So we divide 5 into 6. And notice again, this is the same thing we have written here. 6 divided by 5, 6 divided by 5. Because the dividend goes in the house, the divisor goes outside of the house. 5 can fit into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. Whatever our remainder is, that becomes our numerator. And our divisor is our denominator. So it's 1 1/5. So each flower pot got 1 whole bag of flour soil. Each flower pot got 1 whole bag of soil and 1/5 of another bag of soil, or 1 1/5 bags of soil. Okay, I'm going to give you some independent work now. I'm going to put one on here for you to solve independently, and then you'll click on the next video attached under this one to see if you did it correctly. Let's say there are 7, let's say cookies, and they're shared by 8 people. And they share them evenly. They break the cookies into pieces and share them evenly. 7 cookies shared by 8 people. How much of a cookie does each person get? Go ahead, solve this one independently, do the best you can, and then click on the next video attached under this one to see if you did it correctly. And I will see you then.